A young woman named Lena walked slowly toward the edge of a wide lake. The air was cool and smelled of water and earth. A thin layer of fog hovered over the lake, making the world feel soft and quiet. Lena carried a small basket with some fruit, a book, and a light shawl. She was taking a boat across the lake to visit the temple on the far shore. She loved this journey. She loved the calm water, the gentle rocking of the boat, and the way the morning light slowly painted the sky. She had always felt that the lake had its own heartbeat, its own slow, steady rhythm. As she reached the dock, she saw a long wooden boat tied to a post. The boatman stood nearby, adjusting a rope. He looked up and smiled. "Good morning," he greeted her softly. "Are you ready to cross?" "Yes," Lena replied, returning the smile. She stepped carefully into the boat and sat down on a wooden bench near the middle. The wood felt cool and smooth under her fingers. She placed her basket beside her and pulled the shawl around her shoulders. She looked out at the lake. It looked like a giant mirror, reflecting the gray-blue sky. "This will be a peaceful journey," she thought. "A gentle journey across still water." The boatman untied the rope and pushed away from the dock with a long pole. The boat moved forward, cutting quietly through the water. There were a few other passengers on board. An older woman carrying flowers for the temple, a young boy clutching a small bundle, and a fisherman with a net. They sat silently, each lost in their own thoughts. The only sounds were the soft splash of water against the boat and the distant call of birds. Lena watched as the dock slowly disappeared behind them. The fog wrapped itself around the boat like a soft blanket. She could see only a short distance ahead. The water around them was smooth, barely moving. She listened to the gentle sound of the boatman's pole entering and leaving the way. Tur, plunk, splash, plunk. The rhythm was slow and steady, like a heartbeat. It soothed her. She closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the boat's movement. When she opened her eyes again, she could see the faint glow of the sun beginning to lighten the horizon. The sky was changing from dark blue to pale pink. She thought of the word dawn. She whispered, "Dawn is the time when morning begins." She repeated the word slowly, dawn. She liked the way it sounded. Lena looked at the water beside the boat. It was clear and smooth. She could see the reflection of the sky in it, and sometimes she could see fish swimming just below the surface. The fish moved gracefully, their bodies curving gently as they swam. She thought of the word reflection. She whispered, "A reflection is an image in water." She thought of the word fish. She whispered, "Fish live in water." She repeated the simple sentences slowly, enjoying the sound of each word. She imagined explaining them to someone learning English. The repetition felt like a gentle practice. She looked up and saw a flock of birds flying low over the lake. Their wings moved in unison, making a soft, fluttering sound. "Birds," she whispered. "Birds fly in the sky." She repeated the words. She felt grateful for the quiet moment, for the chance to practice new words while surrounded by such beauty. The boat continued to glide across the water. The fog began to lift, revealing more of the lake and the distant shore. The sky grew lighter, and shades of orange and gold appeared near the horizon. The sun was beginning to rise. Lena turned to the older woman sitting nearby. The woman's face was lined with wrinkles, and her hands held the flowers gently. "Good morning," Lena said softly. "The lake is beautiful today." The woman nodded and smiled. "Yes," she replied. "Every morning it looks new. Every morning it teaches us to see the world with fresh eyes." Lena thought about the word fresh. She whispered, "Fresh means new and clean." She repeated it slowly. The older woman looked at Lena's basket. "Where are you going?" she asked. "To the temple," Lena answered. "I have some fruit for the offering." "The gods will be pleased," the woman said kindly. "It's good to make an offering with love." Lena nodded. She thought about the word offering. She whispered, "An offering is a gift for the gods." She liked learning new ways to express her thoughts. As the sun continued to rise, the colors in the sky deepened. The water reflected those colors, turning the lake into a canvas of pinks, oranges, and yellows. The fog thinned, revealing small islands with trees and shrubs. Some trees had long branches that dipped into the water, creating circles when the breeze moved them. Lena thought of the word island. She whispered, "An island is land surrounded by water." She repeated the sentence slowly. The boat passed by one of these small islands. Lena could see a white egret standing near the shore. The bird stood very still, watching the water for fish. She thought of the word egret. She whispered it, then added a simple sentence. An egret is a bird with long legs and a long neck. She smiled as she spoke. She enjoyed connecting words to things she could see. It made learning feel alive. The young boy across from Lena opened at his bundle. Inside was a small clay toy shaped like a boat. He looked at Lena and smiled shyly. She smiled back. "Is that your boat?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Yes," he answered. "My father made it for me." Lena thought of the word toy. She whispered, "A toy is something a child plays with." She repeated the sentence slowly. The boy placed the toy boat in the water beside the real boat. It floated alongside them, bobbing gently on the small waves. The boy watched it with wide eyes. Lena watched too. She thought of the word float. She whispered, "To float means to stay on top of water." She repeated it. The boatman noticed the boy's toy and smiled. "It's a good boat," he said kindly. "It stays on the surface, just like ours." The boy beamed with pride. Lena felt warmth in her heart. She thought about the words pride and kindness. She whispered them slowly. Pride is feeling good about something you did. Kindness is being friendly and helpful. She repeated the definition, enjoying the way the words sounded. The fisherman, who had been quiet until now, began to prepare his net. He stood up carefully and threw the net into the water with practiced ease. The net spread out like a wide circle. It floated on the surface for a moment before sinking slowly. The fisherman held the rope and waited. Lena thought of the word net. She whispered, "A net is used to catch fish." She repeated it. She watched the fisherman pull the net back up. It came out of the water with a few small fish caught in its weave. The fish flapped gently, and the fisherman carefully freed them and placed them in a small bucket. He looked at Lena and smiled. "It's a good day," he said quietly. "The lake is generous." Lena thought about the word generous. She whispered, "Generous means giving more than expected." She repeated the sentence slowly. She liked the idea of the lake being generous. She felt grateful for the fish, the water, the journey. As the boat moved closer to the center of the lake, the sun fully rose above the horizon. Its light warmed Lena's face. The fog had disappeared completely, and the view was clear. She could see the temple on the far shore now, its white walls shining softly in the morning light. The temple looked peaceful and inviting. "Temple," she whispered. "A temple is a place for prayer." She repeated the sentence slowly. She thought of the word shore. She whispered, "The shore is the land beside the water." She formed a sentence. "We are heading toward the shore." She enjoyed hearing the simple rhythm of the words. She looked at the passengers around her. The older woman still held her flowers. The young boy watched his toy boat. The fisherman cleaned his net. The boatman guided the boat steadily. Everyone was quiet, each person wrapped in their own thoughts. The quiet felt like a blanket, comforting and warm. Lena decided to practice more English words. She looked around and chose things to describe. She whispered, "Boat, we are in a boat. Water, the boat is on water. Bench, I am sitting on a bench. Pole, the boatman uses a pole." She repeated each word slowly. Then she made simple sentences. The boat is wooden. The water is calm. The bench is long. The pole is long and smooth. She imagined someone listening and repeating after her. She imagined teaching these words to a friend. She felt happy and relaxed. She continued to look around, choosing new words as new sights appeared. "Sky," she whispered. "The sky is blue. Sun, the sun is bright. Cloud, there are small clouds. Tree, there are trees on the shore." She made sentences. The sky is clear. The sun is rising. The clouds are light. The trees are green. The repetition and simplicity made her feel peaceful. The morning made everything feel gentle. As the boat journey continued, Lena felt a sense of timelessness. The lake seemed to stretch into infinity. The movement of the boat felt like a slow, steady dance. She watched the ripples in the water created by the boat's passage. The ripples spread out in circles, touching everything around them. She thought of the word ripple. She whispered, "A ripple is a small wave on water." She repeated it slowly. She thought of the word circle. She whispered, "A circle is a round shape." She formed a simple sentence. The ripples make circles. She repeated it. She looked at her own hand resting on her lap. She thought of the word hands. She whispered, "These are my hands." She moved her fingers slowly. She made a sentence. "My hands are warm." She repeated it, enjoying the calm feeling that came with the words. The boatman began to hum a soft tune. The sound was low and soothing. It matched the rhythm of the boat moving through the water. Lena listened and felt like the tune was part of the lake itself. She thought of the word hum. She whispered, "To hum is to sing softly without words." She repeated it. She thought of the word tune. She whispered, "A tune is a melody." She formed a simple sentence. The boatman is humming a tune. She repeated it slowly. She wondered if the tune was an old song passed down through generations of boatmen. She wondered if the lake had heard it many times. The thought made her feel connected to the past. She whispered the word tradition. She said, "A tradition is something people do over and over for many years." She repeated the sentence slowly. She liked thinking about traditions. They made the world feel stable and familiar. Lena noticed that the boy had fallen asleep. His head rested on his mother's lap, and his toy boat floated quietly beside the real boat. She thought of the word sleep. She whispered, "Sleep is when you rest." She repeated it slowly. She thought of the word rest. She whispered, "Rest means to relax and get energy back." She formed a simple sentence. The boy is asleep and resting. She repeated it. She looked at the older woman. The woman had closed her eyes too, perhaps in silent prayer or meditation. Lena thought of the word meditation. She whispered, "Meditation is when you sit quietly and calm your mind." She repeated the sentence slowly. She felt calm just saying the word. She decided to close her eyes for a moment as well. She took a deep breath in and let it out slowly. She focused on the feeling of the boat moving, the sound of the water, and the warmth of the sun on her face. She let her thoughts slow down. She repeated some of the words she had learned. Dawn, reflection, offering, island, egret, float, generous, shore, ripple, tradition. Each word felt like a small pebble she was placing gently in a quiet pond. When Lena opened her eyes again, the temple was much closer. She could see the steps leading up from the water to the entrance. The walls were white and smooth. A few people were standing near the shore, waiting to board the boat for the return trip. The boatman guided the boat toward a small dock near the temple. As they approached, Lena felt a sense of anticipation. She thought of the word anticipation. She whispered, "Anticipation is the feeling of waiting for something to happen." She repeated it slowly. She thought of the word arrival. She whispered, "Arrival means reaching your destination." She made a sentence. "We are arriving at the temple." She repeated it. The boat touched the dock with a gentle bump. The boatman tied the rope to a post. He helped the passengers step out. Lena thanked him softly. He nodded and smiled. Lena climbed the stone steps leading up to the temple. Each step was cool under her feet. The morning light cast long shadows on the steps. At the top, she turned to look back at the lake. The boat looked small on the vast water. The sun shone brightly now, turning the lake into a field of glittering light. She thought of the word glittering. She whispered, "Glittering means shining with many small lights." She repeated it. She thought of the word gratitude. She whispered, "Gratitude is feeling thankful." She repeated the sentence slowly. She felt gratitude for the lake, the journey, the calmness. She turned and entered the temple. Inside, it was cool and quiet. The air smelled of incense. She placed her fruit on the offering table and folded her hands in prayer. She prayed for her family, for peace in the world, and for the strength to always be kind. She thought of the word peace. She whispered, "Peace is when everything is calm and there is no conflict." She repeated it slowly. She felt peace in her heart. After spending some time in the temple, Lena walked back down to the shore. The boatman was preparing to take passengers back across the lake. The older woman, the fisherman, and the boy were already on board. The boy looked more awake now, holding his toy boat in both hands. Lena stepped into the boat and sat down in her previous spot. The boatman untied the rope and pushed away from the dock. The return journey began. The sun was higher in the sky now. The colors were brighter. The lake looked different, yet it still felt calm. Lena thought of the word return. She whispered, "Return means to go back to where you came from." She repeated the sentence slowly. She thought of the word journey. She whispered, "A journey is a trip from one place to another." She repeated it. She felt thankful for the journey. She whispered words of gratitude again. Lake, boat, boatman, morning, sun, water, silence. As the boat moved across the lake once more, Lena decided to practice some more English words and sentences. She looked at the world around her and chose simple things to describe. She whispered, "Oar. The boatman uses an oar." She repeated it. She looked at the surface of the water. She whispered, "Surface. The surface of the water is smooth." She looked at the distant hills. She whispered, "Hills. The hills are green." She made sentences. The oar is long, the surface is calm. The hills are far. She repeated them slowly. She thought of the word distance. She whispered, "Distance is the space between two places." She repeated the sentence. The distance between the boat and the hills is great. She liked learning words about space and movement. They made her feel connected to the bigger world. The boat passed by the small islands again. The egret she had seen earlier was still there, standing patiently by the shore. She whispered, "Patience." She said, "Patience means waiting calmly." She repeated it. She thought of the word watchful. She whispered, "Watchful means looking carefully." She formed a sentence. The egret is watchful and patient. She repeated it slowly. She looked at the water and saw her reflection again. She whispered, "Reflection shows what you look like." She repeated it. She thought about the word self. She whispered, "My reflection shows myself." She repeated the simple sentence. She enjoyed the way that language could turn a quiet moment into a lesson. It made the world feel rich with meaning. Lena noticed that the young boy was now playing with his toy boat by himself, making it move around in the water. He guided it with his fingers, making it turn and spin. He whispered to himself, perhaps telling his own little story. She thought of the word imagination. She whispered, imagination is the ability to create pictures and stories in your mind. She repeated it slowly. She thought of the word play. She whispered, play is doing something for fun. She formed a sentence. The boy is playing with imagination. She repeated it. She felt happy watching the boy. It reminded her that even simple objects can bring joy when we use our imagination. It reminded her that learning and play are connected. She whispered, joy means happiness. She repeated it. As the boat neared the dock on the village side of the lake, Lena felt a sense of completion. The journey across the water and back had been slow and gentle, full of sights, sounds, and small lessons. She thought of the word complete. She whispered, complete means finished or whole. She repeated the sentence, the journey feels complete. She thought of the word lesson. She whispered, a lesson is something you learn. She repeated, the journey has been a lesson in calm and patience. She felt grateful once more for the simple beauty of the lake, for the chance to practice words, and for the quiet that allowed her to hear her own thoughts. She repeated some of the words she had learned: dawn, reflection, offering, island, egret, float, generous, shore, ripple, tradition, anticipation, arrival, glittering, gratitude, peace, return, imagination, patience, complete. Each word felt like a small pearl she had collected during the journey. The boat touched the dock, and the boatman tied it securely. The passengers stepped off one by one. Lena thanked the boatman and wished him a good day. He smiled and nodded. Have a peaceful day, he replied. Lena walked along the path back to her village. The morning was now fully awake. Birds sang from the trees. People were beginning their daily tasks. The air was warm and filled with the smell of breakfast cooking. Lena thought about how she would tell her family about the journey. She thought about how she would describe the lake and the sunrise. She smiled. she felt calm and refreshed. She whispered to herself one last sentence. Take your time. Enjoy every moment. She repeated it, letting the words settle in her heart. She knew she would remember this journey whenever she needed peace. She knew she would return to the lake again to ride the boat and watch the dawn, to practice words and rest her mind. She felt a deep connection to the water, the land, and the quiet learning that happens when we slow down and listen. On a warm afternoon, a young woman named Mira set out to walk through the forest near her village. She loved the forest. It was a place where she could escape from the noise and busyness of daily life. The forest was full of tall trees, soft moss, and the sounds of birds and insects. The air in the forest always felt cool, even on hot days. It smelled of pine needles, damp earth, and wildflowers. Mira carried a small backpack with a bottle of water, some fruit, and a notebook. She planned to walk slowly, observe everything around her, and maybe collect a few herbs on the way. As she reached the edge of the forest, she paused to take a deep breath. She felt excitement and calm at the same time. She looked at the path in front of her. It was narrow and covered with fallen leaves. This will be a peaceful walk, she told herself. A quiet journey through trees and sunlight. She stepped onto the path and began to walk slowly. Each step made a soft sound as it pressed into the layer of leaves. As Mira walked deeper into the forest, the sounds of the village faded. She could no longer hear the voices of people or the bark of dogs. Instead, she heard birds singing high in the branches, insects buzzing in the grass, and the gentle rustling of leaves. Sunlight filtered through the canopy, creating patches of light and shadow on the ground. Mira looked up and saw how the leaves formed a green roof above her. She thought of the word canopy. She whispered, "A canopy is like a roof of leaves." She repeated the sentence slowly. She thought of the word sunlight. She whispered, "Sunlight is light from the sun." She repeated the simple sentence. She enjoyed connecting the words she knew with the things she could see. She felt the forest teaching her both calmness and language. She continued walking, her eyes moving between the path and the trees around her. She listened carefully to the different bird calls. Each call had its own rhythm and tone. She thought of the word sound. She whispered, "A sound is something you hear." She repeated it slowly. The path led Mira to a small stream. The stream flowed gently over rocks, making a soft, continuous sound. The water was clear. She could see stones of different colors and shapes on the bottom. Moss grew on the rocks, creating green cushions. Small ferns and flowers grew along the banks. Mira bent down and touched the water. It was cool and refreshing. She thought of the word stream. She whispered, "A stream is a small, narrow river." She repeated the sentence slowly. She thought of the word moss. She whispered, "Moss is a soft, green plant that grows on rocks." She repeated it. She made a simple sentence. The stream is clear. The moss is soft. She liked the way the words matched the things she touched. She filled her bottle with some water and took a sip. The water tasted pure. She felt grateful for it. She whispered the word grateful. She said, "Grateful means thankful." She repeated it slowly. As Mira continued along the path, she noticed patches of sunlight on the forest floor. They looked like gold coins scattered on a green carpet. She stepped into one of these patches and felt the warmth of the sun on her skin. She thought of the word warmth. She whispered, "Warmth is the feeling of heat." She repeated it. She thought of the word shadow. She whispered, "A shadow is a dark shape made by blocking light." She made a sentence. The sunlight makes patches of light and shadow. She repeated it slowly. She watched as leaves moved in the breeze, making the patches of light dance. She listened to the wind whispering through the leaves. It sounded like a soft voice, telling ancient stories. She thought of the word whisper. She whispered. To whisper is to speak softly. She repeated it. She felt connected to everything around her. The trees, the wind, the sunlight, and the shadows. The path took Mira to a large open clearing. In the middle of the clearing stood an enormous oak tree. Its trunk was thick and covered with rough bark. Its branches spread out wide, creating a huge circle of shade on the ground. Some of the branches were so thick that they looked like smaller trees themselves. Mira walked up to the oak tree and placed her hand on the bark. It felt rough and strong. She thought of the word oak. She whispered, "An oak is a type of tree." She repeated the sentence. She thought of the word bark. She whispered, "Bark is the outer covering of a tree." She made a simple sentence. The oak tree has rough bark. She repeated it slowly. She walked around the tree, looking up at its branches. She saw a squirrel running along a branch, stopping to look at her, then disappearing into the leaves. She thought of the word squirrel. She whispered it. She made a sentence. A squirrel has a bushy tail. She repeated it slowly. She smiled at the small creature. Mira decided to sit down in the shade of the oak tree for a while. She took off her backpack and pulled out an apple. She bit into the apple, tasting its sweetness and crunch. She thought of the word crunch. She whispered, "Crunch is the sound of biting something hard." She repeated it slowly. She thought of the word sweet. She whispered, "Sweet is a pleasant taste like sugar or fruit." She made a sentence. The apple is sweet and crunchy. She repeated it. After eating the apple, she took out her notebook. She wrote down some of the words she had practiced. Canopy, stream, moss, shadow, oak, bark, squirrel. She wrote simple sentences for each one. Writing the words helped her remember them. She thought of the word write. She whispered, "To write is to put words on paper." She repeated it slowly. She felt proud of her learning. She thought of the word proud. She whispered, "Proud means feeling good about something you did." She repeated it slowly. After resting, Mira packed her things and continued walking. The path became narrower and wound between rocks covered with lichen. The lichen was pale green and orange, creating beautiful patterns. She thought of the word lichen. She whispered, "Lichen is a plant that grows on rocks." She repeated the sentence. She thought of the word pattern. She whispered, "A pattern is a repeated design." She made a sentence. The lichen makes patterns on the rocks. She repeated it slowly. She climbed over a small ridge and found herself in a part of the forest where the trees were mostly birches. Their white trunks stood out against the dark green of the pines. She thought of the word birch. She whispered, "A birch is a tree with white bark." She repeated the sentence. She made another. "The birch trees are tall and thin." She repeated it. She liked the contrast between the birch trees and the pines. She whispered the word contrast. She said, "Contrast is the difference between two things." She repeated it slowly. Mira's path eventually led to a small meadow filled with wildflowers. The meadow was a burst of colors: yellow buttercups, purple thistles, blue cornflowers, and white daisies. Bees moved from flower to flower, buzzing gently. Butterflies fluttered above the blossoms, their wings like tiny stained glass windows. Mira stopped and looked closely at the flowers. She thought of the word meadow. She whispered, "A meadow is a field with grass and flowers." She repeated it. She thought of the word blossom. She whispered, "A blossom is the flower of a plant." She made a sentence. The meadow is full of blossoms. She repeated it slowly. She thought of the word butterfly. She whispered, "A butterfly is an insect with colorful wings." She repeated it. She loved watching the butterflies. Their wings moved slowly and softly, like pieces of colored paper floating on the breeze. She whispered the word gentle. She said, "Gentle means soft and kind." She repeated it slowly. In the meadow, Mira saw an old man kneeling by a patch of herbs. He was picking leaves and placing them in a basket. His hands were steady and his movements were slow and careful. Mira approached him quietly. "Good afternoon," she said softly. The man looked up and smiled. "Good afternoon," he replied. "Are you gathering herbs?" Mira nodded. "Yes," she answered. "I'm looking for mint and coriander." The old man pointed to a patch nearby. "You can find mint over there," he said, "and coriander near the stream." He told her about the different herbs and their uses. He showed her how to pick the leaves without damaging the plants. Mira listened carefully. She thought of the word herb. She whispered, "An herb is a plant used for flavor or medicine." She repeated it. She thought of the word mint. She whispered, "Mint is a herb with a strong, fresh smell." She repeated it. The walk back felt peaceful. Mira's mind was calm. She thought about all the words she had practiced and the sentences she had formed. She repeated some of them quietly as she walked. Canopy, stream, moss, shadow, oak, bark, squirrel, lichen, pattern, birch, contrast, meadow, blossom, butterfly, gentle, herb, mint, guidance, kindness, generous, cushion, handrail, shallow, incline, fern, mushroom, view, bamboo, thicket, slender, familiar, direction, detail, notice. Each word carried with it a memory of something she had seen or felt. Each sentence reminded her of the beauty she had experienced. She felt grateful for the forest and its lessons. She whispered the word lesson. She said, "A lesson is something you learn." She repeated it slowly. She thought of the word calm. She whispered, "Calm means peaceful and relaxed." She repeated it. She felt calm in her heart. When Mira reached the edge of the forest, she looked back one last time. The trees stood tall and quiet. The path behind her looked inviting, promising more walks in the future. She whispered a thank you to the forest, to the trees, the stream, the meadow, and the creatures she had seen. She thought of the word gratitude again. She whispered, Gratitude is feeling thankful. She repeated it slowly. She stepped out of the forest and onto the road that led to her village. The sun was lower in the sky now. Shadows were longer, the air was warmer. She could hear the sounds of the village, voices, laughter, the clink of dishes. She thought about how she would share her experience with her family. She smiled. She felt relaxed and happy. She whispered to herself, "Take your time. Enjoy every moment." She repeated it, letting the words sink into her mind. She knew she would return to the forest again, to walk slowly, practice words, and find peace among the trees.